Welcome back to our YouTube channel with another kindness story. Asterisk. Today's story begins at 37,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, where kindness didn't arrive as a smile or a helping hand, but as a voice brave enough to speak when silence became terrifying. Asterisk, the cockpit went silent long before anyone understood why. At first, it was subtle, the kind of quiet pilots are trained to notice, but passengers never do. A pause where a checklist response should have been. A stillness where motion was expected. Captain Robert Harris, a veteran with over 20,000 flight hours, had stopped speaking mid-sentence. His hands rested on the controls, but his eyes stared through them. Unfocused. Asterisk, the first officer, Daniel Brooks, called his name once, then twice. No response. Asterisk. Outside, the Atlantic stretched endlessly beneath them, a dark, rolling expanse reflecting the night sky. Inside, the aircraft continued forward on momentum and automation, unaware that something precious had just been lost. Command? Asterisk. Daniel followed protocol with shaking precision. He checked vitals. He attempted radio contact. He ran emergency procedures exactly as the manuals described. But manuals never prepared him for the weight of being suddenly alone. The captain was gone, not dead, not yet, but unreachable. And the responsibility of 206 souls had fallen, without warning, onto his shoulders. Asterisk. The cockpit lights blinked softly, indifferent. The autopilot chimed, then disengaged. Asterisk. That sound sharp. Final was when the silence truly began. Asterisk. In the cabin, passengers sensed it before they knew it. There's a moment on every flight when people unconsciously read the mood of the aircraft. The engines hadn't changed, but something else had. Flight attendants paused mid-step. A baby stopped crying. Conversations trailed off into uneasy whispers. No announcement came. No reassuring voice. Just the low hum of flight and the unspoken question, "Is everything okay?" Asterisk. Daniel's hands trembled as he gripped the controls. He was qualified. He was trained. But training assumes a functioning team, clear weather, time. He had none of those in abundance. Fuel calculations ran through his head like a ticking clock. Nearest diversion points blinked on the navigation display, far unfamiliar. Surrounded by weather systems that refused to cooperate. Asterisk. He pressed the intercom, intending to make an announcement, but his throat closed. What do you say when you don't yet know how to save everyone? Asterisk. In row 34, seat B, Dr. Maya Rowe felt the shift the way pilots do through her bones, not her thoughts. The slight change in pitch. The hesitation in the aircraft's rhythm. Years ago, she had learned to read planes the way doctors read heartbeats. And this plane, right now, was arrhythmic. Asterisk. Maya wasn't supposed to be here, not in this way. She had left aviation behind after a personal tragedy, choosing medicine because it allowed her to heal without risking hundreds of lives at once. Tonight, she was just a passenger flying home. Her pilot's license long expired, but her instincts painfully awake. Asterisk. When the seatbelt sign blinked on unexpectedly and stayed on, she looked up. When a flight attendant passed by too quickly, eyes tight with worry, Maya felt the truth settle in her chest. Something was wrong. Minutes passed. No announcement. The silence grew heavier, stretching, pressing. People began checking their phones despite the lack of signal, as if reassurance might magically appear. Someone laughed nervously. Someone prayed. Someone else stared out the window at the black nothingness below. Asterisk. Then came the sound that broke the cabin's fragile calm, a call over the intercom. Shaky and unfinished. Asterisk. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your first officer speaking. The pause that followed was too long. Please remain seated. We are assessing a situation. That was all. Maya closed her eyes. Assessing a situation was not what you said when things were under control. Asterisk. She stood before fear could argue her back into her seat. Asterisk. The walk down the aisle felt longer than it should have. Faces turned toward her, curious, anxious, hopeful, without knowing why. A flight attendant intercepted her near the galley. Asterisk. I'm a pilot, Maya said quietly, urgently. Former commercial. Please tell the cockpit I need to speak with them. Asterisk. The attendant hesitated, kindness and protocol colliding in her expression. Then she nodded and disappeared behind the cockpit door. Asterisk. Seconds later, the door opened. Asterisk. The cockpit was chaos wrapped in silence. One pilot slumped forward. One pilot barely holding it together. Warning lights blinking like accusations. Asterisk. Maya stepped inside, the weight of the moment settling fully on her shoulders. She took in the instruments, the altitude, the heading. Her pulse slowed not because she wasn't afraid, but because fear had finally found a purpose. Asterisk. The first officer looked at her, disbelief and desperation warring in his eyes. Asterisk. Before he could ask who she was, before doubt could shut the door again. Maya spoke into the quiet cockpit, her voice steady, clear, and unmistakably alive. Asterisk. I'm landing this plane. The cockpit door closed behind Maya with a soft final click, sealing her inside a world she had once called home. The familiar scent of recycled air, warm electronics, and faint metal stirred memories she hadn't visited in years. For a brief moment, she stood still, letting her eyes sweep across the instrument panel. Altitude steady, speed acceptable, heading slightly off but correctable. The aircraft wasn't lost. Not yet. Asterisk. Daniel Brooks finally found his voice. You said you're a pilot? Asterisk. Former, Maya replied, already sliding into the jump seat. Commercial. Airbus A330 type rated. I need to know what happened. Asterisk. Daniel swallowed hard. Captain collapsed. No warning. Autopilot dropped a minute ago. Weather's turning rough ahead. Fuels. Not great. Asterisk. Maya nodded, absorbing the information without judgment. She'd seen this look before, the haunted expression of someone forced into command before they felt ready. Kindness, she knew, didn't always look gentle. Sometimes it sounded like confidence borrowed until the other person could stand again. Asterisk. Okay, she said calmly. First, you're not alone anymore. Those 6 words changed everything. She reached for the captain's wrist, checking for a pulse. Weak, irregular, but present. We'll keep him stable, she said. But right now, this plane needs flying. Asterisk. Daniel shifted aside instinctively as Maya took the captain's seat. The controls fit her hands like memory. Her feet found the rudder pedals without looking. Years dissolved in an instant. Asterisk. Outside the cockpit, the cabin buzzed with rising anxiety. Flight attendants whispered. Passengers leaned into aisles, searching for reassurance. No one yet knew how close they were to panic or how far they were from safety. Asterisk. Maya keyed the radio. Oceanic Control, this is Flight 782 declaring a medical emergency in the cockpit. We have an incapacitated captain. Request immediate vectors to nearest suitable airport. Asterisk. The response crackled back, urgent but steady. Flight 782, Roger. Stand by. Asterisk. Daniel watched her, stunned not just by her skill, but by her composure. How long since you flew? He asked quietly. Asterisk. 5 years, Maya answered, adjusting the heading. Longer since I wanted to. Asterisk. He didn't press. There would be time for stories later, if there was a later at all. Asterisk. As air traffic control fed them options, Maya assessed each one with brutal honesty. Distance, weather, runway length, rescue capability. She wasn't looking for perfection, just survivability. Asterisk. We'll divert to Shannon, she said finally. It's tight, but it's our best shot. Daniel nodded. Trust, once given, came fully. In the cabin, an announcement came at last, not polished, not scripted, but sincere. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Maya Rao speaking from the cockpit. I'm a licensed pilot, and I'm assisting the crew due to a medical emergency. We are diverting to an alternate airport. The situation is under control. Her voice carried something no one realized they needed so desperately. Calm without false promises. A ripple passed through the passengers. Some exhaled for the first time in minutes. Others cried quietly. A few whispered thank you to no one in particular. Back in the cockpit, turbulence began to rock the plane. The Atlantic winds were less forgiving now, buffeting the aircraft like a warning. Maya compensated smoothly, her movements economical, precise. Why medicine? Daniel asked during a brief lull. Maya didn't look at him. Because planes don't forgive mistakes, she said softly. And I made one once. The memory rose uninvited, a different cockpit, a different night, a decision that still haunted her. She had walked away from flying not because she lacked skill, but because she lacked forgiveness for herself. Now, fate had circled back. Fuel calculations tightened. Every adjustment mattered. Maya ran through procedures aloud, including Daniel in each step, anchoring him in the process. Kindness again, not as comfort, but as partnership. You're doing well, she told him when his hand steadied. Stay with me. As they descended, the captain groaned faintly. A flight attendant rushed in with medical equipment. Maya spared a glance. Keep him stable. We'll be on the ground soon. The lights of the diversion airport were still far away, hidden behind cloud and rain. The margin for error narrowed with every mile. Maya felt the familiar pressure build behind her eyes, the weight of lives, the consequences of choices. But beneath it was something else, something steadier, purpose. She had spent years believing she'd left this world behind. But as the aircraft responded to her touch, as the voice in her head grew clear instead of afraid, Maya understood something vital. She hadn't been pulled back into aviation by chance. She had been called, and she was ready to answer again. The aircraft began its slow, deliberate descent through thickening clouds, the nose dipping just enough to remind everyone on board that gravity was no longer an abstract idea. The seatbelt sign remained lit, its soft chime now a constant companion. Turbulence rolled through the cabin in uneven waves, rattling overhead bins and tightening the grip of fear around every passenger's chest. In the cockpit. The world narrowed to instruments, numbers, and timing. Altitude set, Daniel said, his voice steadier now. Anchored by routine? Good, Maya replied. Monitor airspeed. Call out anything that looks wrong, even if you're not sure. He nodded. She wasn't just flying the plane. She was flying with him, pulling him back from the edge of overwhelm inch by inch. Rain streaked across the windshield, blurring the horizon into a gray smear. The Atlantic disappeared beneath them, replaced by cloud layers that swallowed all sense of distance. Maya adjusted the throttle, feeling the plane respond like a living thing, heavy, tired, but cooperative. In the cabin, fear had transformed into something quieter and more focused. Passengers clutched armrests and hands, strangers sharing silent promises through eye contact. A young boy asked his mother if the lady pilot was a superhero. His mother smiled through tears and said, "Something like that." A flight attendant moved through the aisle, kneeling to reassure an elderly man whose hands wouldn't stop shaking. "She knows what she's doing," the attendant said. believing it now with her whole heart. Asterisk back in the cockpit. Air traffic control guided them with precise urgency. Asterisk Flight 782, you are cleared for approach. Winds are strong. Expect turbulence. Asterisk, understood, Maya replied. We're ready. Asterisk, but readiness didn't erase reality. The weather worsened as they descended, crosswinds pushing against the aircraft's massive frame. The margin for error shrank further. Maya adjusted rudder and ailerons in small, constant corrections. Her jaw set. Asterisk Daniel watched her hands, learning in real time. He had flown many landings, but never like this, never with stakes so naked, so personal. Asterisk, how are you holding up? She asked him without looking away. Asterisk, I'm here, he said. And he meant more than his physical presence. Asterisk, the captain's condition remained fragile. The flight attendant reported a fluctuating pulse. Maya acknowledged it, but her focus never wavered. Kindness, she knew, also meant accepting that you couldn't save everyone at once, you had to choose the order. Asterisk, the runway lights finally pierced the cloud cover. Faint at first, then clearer. A collective breath moved through the plane as if the aircraft itself had exhaled. Asterisk, there, Daniel said. Visual. Asterisk, I see it, Maya replied. Gear down. Asterisk, the landing gear deployed with a solid thump, a sound that echoed hope and danger in equal measure. Asterisk, as they aligned with the runway, a sudden gust shoved the plane sideways. Warning alarms chirped. Daniel's breath caught. Asterisk, I've got it, Maya said firmly, correcting the angle, compensating for the wind. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Asterisk, her mind was quiet now, not empty, but focused. Years of experience, training, and loss converged into a single, narrow path. She remembered why she had loved flying. Not the control, but the responsibility. Not the sky, but the trust placed in her to navigate it. Asterisk in the cabin. People felt the shift, the plane fighting the wind, the uneven descent. Some prayed aloud now. Others squeezed their eyes shut. A man in the back whispered apologies to people he loved. Just in case. Maya spoke over the intercom one last time. We're about to land. It may be rough. Please remain seated and follow crew instructions. Asterisk, no promises. Just honesty. Asterisk, the runway rushed toward them. Rain-slicked and unforgiving. Speed, angle, wind. Everything had to align. Asterisk, stabilized. Daniel called out, awe creeping into his voice. Asterisk, Maya's hands tightened slightly on the controls. Almost, she murmured. Asterisk, another gust hit, harder this time. The plane dipped. Warning lights flashed. Asterisk, for a heartbeat. The outcome balanced on a razor's edge. Asterisk, then Maya adjusted small, precise. Instinctive. The aircraft leveled. The wheels were seconds away from touching ground. Asterisk, and in that suspended moment, between sky and earth, fear and faith, Maya felt something unexpected bloom in her chest. Not relief, not triumph, but gratitude. Asterisk, gratitude for the training she once resented, for the life that brought her here, for the chance to choose courage again. Asterisk. Hold, she whispered. The runway filled the windshield, and the plane descended. Committed now, carrying every soul on board toward whatever awaited them at the end of the storm. The wheels struck the runway with a force that rattled every bone in the aircraft, a hard, uncompromising impact that echoed through the cabin like thunder. For a fraction of a second, no one knew whether it was success or failure, only that. The ground had finally met them. Asterisk, then the tires screamed. Rubber burning against rain-soaked asphalt as Maya pulled the thrust reversers. The engines roared, not in protest, but in obedience. The aircraft shuddered, fighting momentum, hydroplaning just enough to keep everyone holding their breath. Asterisk speed decreasing. Daniel called out, his voice shaking but steady. Asterisk. Maintain center line, Maya replied, feet working the pedals. With practiced urgency. The crosswind shoved again, trying to twist the aircraft sideways, but she corrected instantly, refusing to give it an inch. Asterisk. In the cabin. Screams erupted not of terror, but release. People clung to armrests as the plane slowed, the violence of motion gradually surrendering to control. A child laughed through tears. Someone shouted, "We're down!" Another sobbed openly, forehead pressed to the seat in front of them. Asterisk. Aircraft rolled, slower now, slower, and then stillness, for a heartbeat. The world paused. Asterisk. Maya brought the plane to a complete stop and set the brakes. The engines powered down, their roar fading into a profound, holy silence. The cockpit lights glowed softly, no longer accusatory, just present. Asterisk. We're stopped, Daniel whispered, disbelief cracking his voice. Asterisk. Maya leaned back in her seat, her hands still on the controls, as if letting go might make the moment vanish. Her breath came out in a long, trembling exhale she hadn't realized she was holding. They had done it. Applause exploded in the cabin, raw, unfiltered, overwhelming. It wasn't polite clapping. It was gratitude crashing against fear, relief. Against memory. Strangers hugged. Flight attendants cried openly. Some passengers fell to their knees right where they stood, whispering thanks to God, to fate, to a woman whose name they had learned only minutes ago. Asterisk. Emergency vehicles surrounded the plane, lights flashing through the rain like a constellation of safety. Medics rushed on board to attend to the captain, who was quickly stabilized and carried off with careful urgency. Asterisk. Only then did Maya finally release the controls. Asterisk. Daniel turned to her, eyes red, face wet. You saved us. Asterisk. Maya shook her head gently. We landed together, she said. That matters. Asterisk. When she stepped into the cabin, the applause surged again, louder this time, rolling toward her like a wave. She froze, overwhelmed. She hadn't done this for recognition. She hadn't done it to be seen. Asterisk. But kindness, she realized, often becomes visible whether you want it to or not. Asterisk. A woman reached out and hugged her without asking. A man pressed his forehead to hers and whispered, "Thank you for bringing us home." The little boy from row 22 stared up at her with wide eyes. Asterisk. Are you really a superhero? He asked. Asterisk. Maya knelt to his level and smiled. No, she said softly. Just someone who didn't stay quiet. Asterisk. Later, as passengers disembarked into the waiting arms of loved ones, Maya sat alone near the window, watching the rain ease into a mist. The airport lights shimmered across the wet runway. Calm now, ordinary. The storm had passed. Asterisk. An official approached with questions, forms, gratitude wrapped in procedure. Maya answered what she could, her mind still catching up to her body. When they finally left her alone, she stared out at the plane, the massive machine that had once again trusted her. Asterisk. For years, she had believed her story with aviation ended in failure. Tonight had rewritten that belief, not by erasing the past, but by proving it didn't get the final word. Asterisk. Daniel stopped by before leaving, hesitating like he wasn't sure how to say goodbye. I won't forget this, he said. Maya smiled. Neither will I. Asterisk. As she walked through the terminal, unnoticed now, just another passenger among many. Maya felt something settle inside her, not pride, but peace. Kindness hadn't asked her to be perfect. It had only asked her to be present, to speak when silence could have cost everything, and she had. So as we close today's kindness story, remember this. Sometimes kindness isn't loud. Sometimes it doesn't look gentle or soft. Sometimes it sounds like a steady voice in the darkest moment, saying, "I'm here. I've got this." Asterisk, and sometimes that's enough to bring everyone safely home.